And they're going to have a gunfight. They know there's action there. They're all looking at each other, wondering what's going down. But I know what's going down. Tonight is ladies' night at the club. That means every lady wins a free pineapple, but you don't win the pin. No pin for you, my friend. Taste the rainbow. Right across your chops, buddy. It's a tough life. We're just all living it. Well, hello there, humans, bees, earthlings, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and if you're lucky enough indeed to be doing it too. I get asked this all the time. What are your settings? What are your graphics stylings? What are your basic options selected? How do you have your controls set up? And why do you have them set up that way? And what I thought I'd do today is just a comprehensive, quick look at that, as well as including a big Handcam overlay on top of the actual gameplay so you can see it in action and you can figure out exactly what I'm doing. And I'm going to run through it from the top on down. So the basics, then the graphics and controls, and then sensitivity. And then I'll even go through my pickups and other options as well. But basic options, and this is something you can certainly do for yourself. Aim assist is enabled. I've tried it off and I've tried it on, and I, honest to God, see next to no difference there. I can't really feel that there's anything important with that. So I always enable it because doesn't hurt. Bolt action and crossbow and shotgun and all that, it is enabled to tap. All right, so here's the important one, the first really important one. Peek and fire. I've got that enabled, and I have peek and open scope enabled. I don't see the point in having double handling on a lot of the controls, and the whole ethos for me on my control settings is simplicity. So I have peek and open scope enabled because I don't want to have to peek and then tap the zoom button. It just seems like an unnecessary extra step. If you're going to go and do that, you may as well just, you know, not bother with claw at all. You can just press peek, tap it, and it'll go in. Then you press your zoom button. And the other side of it as well is I like to have it on hold mode. Now, the reason for that is quite simple. It means you are only holding it down when you're using it, and then you release it and you pull back in. So you can lean around the corner, get the shot off, aiming, and then pull back in just by releasing the button, rather than tapping it and then having to pull back in by moving back behind the corner physically, or then pressing the button again, and it just takes that little extra time. And this is a game where the time to kill on a gun can get as low as 0.25 of a second, right? On a shotgun or an AWM or something, it can be insta. So those tiny little amounts of time that you're losing there between buttons, pressing two buttons at a time, they can really add up to a bad result. Scope mode, again, is tapped. That's because most of the time when I'm zooming in using the scope, I'm at range, and that's fine. Anything else important here? My first person view is at 103. It's maxed. I have that as high as I can at all times, and you probably should too. And that's about all in there that's really important. This is very straightforward. I think most good players in the world use this. Extreme frame rate, smooth graphics. So that will basically give you the blandest, most easy to see outlines of the maps. It removes a lot of the clutter, and it also allows the frames to stay maxed out all the time, which is very, very important. I use colorful. I find that is the easiest way to define moving targets, particularly in the jungles like Sanhok. Anti-aliasing is turned on, and brightness is maxed at 150%. Very straightforward. Controls. This is where it's going to get interesting. And the big thing that you'll see here is on the left-hand side of the screen, I have like my jump button, my zoom button, my vault button, and my peek buttons. The reason for that is quite simple. I like to divide the buttons on either side so that I'm never having to press two buttons with one finger. And that's why I have peek and zoom on, like for my pro lean buttons there. And then on the right hand side of the screen, I have the fire button. And I mean, it's really important that you understand this. So let me run you through it. You're able to zoom in at range for a sniper fight and fire, but you're never going to zoom in and jump at the same time. Okay? You can't do that. The game won't allow you to do it. You can pro lean out and peek, but you can't jump and pro lean out at the same time. They're two separate actions, and they can't be taken at the same time. So what this means is that you're able to fire, aim, move, and do one of your actions all at the same time, which maximizes a four-finger claw. You don't need six fingers. Like, I find that very funny when people are running six fingers and they're saying, oh, six-finger claw. It's like, The only thing you really do differently with 6-finger claw is that stupid thing where they tap pro lean left, pro lean right, and the scope moves from left to right in the screen, like at an angle. And it does nothing, man. That's just freaking ridiculous, thinking that that's really making a difference. So 6-finger claw is great, but, you know, if you're aiming and firing on the right-hand side, and you're moving on the left and either jumping, zooming, vaulting, or pro leaning, what else are you going to do? Like, what else is there that your avatar will do? You can only do one action at a time, and then it shuts down. So that's why I have my buttons on the left that are single target actions, and my button on the right that you can use at all times when those are happening, like the fire button, or the aim button, or the look around button, or your backpack, all that kind of stuff. And the rest of it is really personal preference as to where your fingers sit on the screen, but those are the important parts for me. Something else to note, up the very top left of your screen, you can see that my player selection there. That's very small because basically the only time I'm going to use that is to invite people to jump with me or to follow people who are inviting me to jump with them. And the same with the map up the top hand right side of the screen. Once your ears get used to things, you're really only looking at the map in very specific circumstances, and it's just not that important for me. There we go. Okay, sensitivity. This is the big one, and I've customized this, and this has taken me quite a long time to figure out. The big thing you need to understand here is the difference between camera and ADS sensitivity. Camera is when you are looking around and not pressing the fire button. ADS sensitivity is when you are pressing the fire button. That is the biggest difference between the two of them, and that is the only difference between the two of them. And that's the thing that's going to really make you a better player, is setting those up to work in that mode. So that's why you'll see my ADS sensitivity on third person no scope is 86%, but my ADS sensitivity on the 3x scope down there is 29%. Now I've got mine set up for single tap firing on my 4, my 6, and my 8 times. And the higher the sensitivity on those, the more the reticle is going to move around the screen. That's why the 8 times scope is 8%, and the 2 times scope is 38%, and the red dot is 47%, and the no scope hip fire is 87%. What you're going to find, though, is different players will set this up differently depending on their common loadouts. If you're running an M416 with a 6 times scope all the time, and you want to, fully unleash Hell Maximus at range and do automatic fire, 11% isn't going to cut it for you. It's going to move too much. You're going to need a higher sensitivity, but that's up to you, and that's up to you to figure out. Those are the big movers and shakers in my PUBG life. Those camera settings, and the camera when you're on an 8 times scope, if that's too high and you're moving around, it's going to go all over the place. You're really only using an 8 times target, 8 times scope to take a shot. You're not using it to search the landscape. It's the worst scope for doing that because it only sees such a small amount. You can move north and south the entire length of the screen, and someone will be 100 meters left or right of where you're looking, and you won't ever see them because the scope is so specific. Then gyroscope, I just don't use. Now, this is a big thing that people carry on about gyroscope. There's two things here. One is gyroscope is excellent as a recoil control method, but I use an iPad, and that means gyroscope is just a bridge too far. The bonus of using a bigger screen, either on an iPad mini or a large Samsung, something along those lines, and you'll see Athena will do it. He uses 2 fingers, and I use it too. I use my thumb and my pointer finger on my right hand to control recoil, 2 at one time. So the pointer finger that presses the fire button is dragging down the screen, and the thumb is dragging down but also adjusting left and right. And that's very, very important. That's the big advantage of an iPad in recoil control, and you'll see my recoil control is excellent. The big advantage of using a phone is you can use gyroscope, which can allow you to do the same kind of shit, which is just nuts. Really, really important that you understand that. If you don't have gyroscope enabled and you're using a phone, then you're missing out on a big opportunity to control recoil. I can't do that on an iPad, but I can do 2-fingered recoil control. So there's pros and cons to both. Pickup. I have my settings all at 180. That's the max I want on my main weapon. The other important stuff here is med kits, 2 fulls, 3 meds. Like, I'll generally pick up 3 and then I'll grab an extra if I feel like I need it. I never have an auto pickup on bandages. I have 4 energy drinks, 3 painkillers, and 2 syringes. Those are my settings. You will have to figure out which ones you like the most, particularly with grenades. But I'm 3 frags, 5 smokes, and 1 molly. That's my standard. I'll adjust those, but I'll always get to 5 smokes first if I can. It's really, really a non-negotiable for me. It's an important one. And the scopes is just 1 for everything, which is pretty easy. I have my scope is very, very simple. My red dot sight is the green one. My holographic sight is the green one. My 2, my 3, they're all the green one. I just like the green one. Pretty straightforward. My audio, you know, who knows? I've turned the music off. It's all very straightforward. So let's now have a look at a quick look at a little bit of a claw overlay, and I'll talk you through some stuff while that is going on as well.